We made it to another Friday, everybody. Thank goodness. I mean, going through the headlines, though, this week was not fun. I will warn you. Canadian politics has gone to hell in a handbasket. I mean, if you're a liberal, you are having a hay old day. Um, no, Carney is doing his little victory laps. We'll talk about his meetings he's had and guests he's about to have. Ashley's here to help us really unpack that one. We're also here to talk a little bit more about the election and its impacts. I mean, we can't just let it go, apparently. there's still things we need to talk about. But yeah, we're looking also at the border this week and some of the things that the U.S., specifically Trump's administration, has been doing that we are feeling the impacts from. And also on the agenda is talking about measles outbreak in Ontario and how our government is responding just as we'd expect it to respond after we experience their response to COVID or continue to feel their lack of response to COVID. But then you stay for the best part of the show, and that's the disruptive updates. So these are updates from the grassroots, calls to action, some previous actions, just it'll give you the feeling that folks are doing something about these headlines. We're not just reading about them. And we do have an activist tip of the week. I think I missed a week. Joe, I think, picked up the slack last week, but it's back on the agenda. And it's a timely one. It has to deal with graduates. It's May, and campuses are kind of gearing up again. So that's a bit of a teaser for the disruptive updates as well. But welcome, Joe and Ashley. I hear it's kind of gray out your way. I'm having a beautiful sunny day, and I have tulips up. So just juxtaposition that to the headlines we're about to unpack. That's a timeline cleanse just for like a quick second. How are you
now
doing?
we go into chaos.
It's
I'm
inevitable.
doing not too bad. It's been a bit of a chaotic week. I've really built up some steam in regards to having conversations with people, as Jessa's noticed this week, with some, I guess to an extent, some spicy people when it comes into it. I've got some sort of thoughts and opinions, particularly in regards to some of the stuff I've seen during the election and post-election right now, which is a little concerning, which is something that, this is just continuation of what I've seen, particularly in regards to how we've much seen the right always sort of built kind of a cult. I'm kind of seeing that a bit with the centrists in regards to how they're viewing their leader right now. And it's kind of concerning how we're seeing all these groups do that. So it'll be interesting to get into that. We get up to there.
It started as Carney fever, and now you're describing it as a cult. I am worried, and this is like everything Ash didn't want to hear.
Yeah.
Other than all of the scoops you're uncovering, Ash, how you been doing this last week?
Okay. I mean, there's a lot of really interesting information out there. That's like not like particularly like easy to access, but once you start digging, like it's pretty cool. There's a lot of stuff out there. And there's been like a lot of like what do you call it? Synchronicities happening where like, you like find something and then something pops up in the news that's like validates the thing you found or that like amplifies the thing you found. Yeah. So that's definitely
That happened to
a
me
lot
this
for me.
morning.
It's wild. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, so there's some like pretty interesting like ties that I've been like kind of just like paying attention to the news, and then I like do a little digging, and then it like opens up all these little rabbit holes. But yeah, it's really awful here today. It's only like 13 degrees here in Ottawa, so it's cold. It's gross.
Yeah, that's shameful. We need to kick May into high gear, but we didn't get to say it. We weren't on the air, but happy belated May Day to all the comrades out there. That was the real Labor Day, even though we don't get it off. I know some folks had a good time down in Toronto, and I even saw some folks reporting in from Havana, and I was lucky enough to do that once, so I was jealous, of course. But That's it's always nice to see a whole bunch of comrades coming together and having a reason to celebrate in these weird ass political times. That's why we're here, though, right? Unpack the headlines with some folks who kind of get it. Not going to gaslight you into thinking Carney's going to save us. But folks, we're just pouring over that Carney Trump meeting this week. We knew it was coming. We knew it would provide fodder, meme material, obviously. Almost anything to do with the Cheeto has that effect. But I was discouraged. And like, this is no shade on your live, Joe. It was just like people so focused on looking for any clue. And I mean like eye tick, shoulder movement to indicate or validate them that, yes, he is the hero that they need against Trump. And he was being like that was their idea of defiant. And I have it in my notes and I wasn't sure if I was gonna say it, but I'm gonna say it. It was like, yeah, obviously I'm always looking for something more defiant than I'm gonna see on the Canadian political screen, right? But like folks getting excited about an eye roll, when he talks about Canada not even really being a trading partner, it is funny. I got miles out of that as well. But my kind of heroes wear fatigues. So I guess I'm never going to be fully satisfied with a banker sitting there and just kind of talking down to the president a little bit about real estate. I mean, I get it. He handled him with kid gloves. That's what you do to someone who's irrational, like a 3-year-old. But yeah, it was still kind of, I wanted a little bit more when you see all these other headlines and people being impacted by this fuck. He's not just a bad trading partner, this business associate you'd rather not deal with. He's a fascist. So anyway, you what did you folks think of that meeting?
So I will say I am not surprised he handled it with him the way he did, and because there's obviously a feeling of like, no, to be far more aggressive. Like, I'm okay with him not being aggressive because he's on U.S. soil, and we've seen what they do to Canadians, let alone their own citizens on their own soil. Like, that's fine. Do whatever you need to do to get out of the country. Once you get back here safely, then yeah.
You don't think they would do anything to Carney? He's got a leeway there. If anyone could be smug as fuck to the president, surely it's got to be another leader.
To be honest, this guy, Trump here, I don't know what this guy's going to do. Like, let's be honest.
He's triggered you. Like, there's just no understanding
no limits.
What he'll do. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, there's no limits. So, I mean, could he deport a world leader if he's unhappy with him while he's there to El Salvador?
But imagine the street cred you would get for that. Imagine Carney comes back a fucking hero if they had kicked him out of the Oval Office.
Absolutely.
A hero,
you think the fandom is bad now? After that, if he survives all of that and comes back here, the fandom will be unbelievable. Like,
so I should be grateful. I should be grateful then, right? Like, he moderated himself just so he wouldn't at least buy in more progressives. Yeah. Heaven forbid. Heaven forbid. Ashley, did you just cringe right through all of that, or did you bother watching it? Could you even watch it?
Oh, the thing is that Mark Carney is deep state. He's like the most deep state of all deep state politicians that we've ever had in Canada. You cannot convince me otherwise. He is so entrenched in the American establishment. So I don't think there was any risk to him. I think he was doing what probably the deep state does to Donald Trump, which is like talk to him like he's a child, because he is a child. But I think he was just like what is it called? Like, like doing, like, he was like trying to be powerful, but like also being a little bit like trying to be respectful, but also really showing that like he's in control. His affiliations and the people that are backing Mark Carney are the most powerful people in the world, right? So like Donald Trump might have the techno feuds behind him, but like Mark Carney, I think I do feel like there's like a little bit of a war maybe going on between like,
a battle of the oligarchs.
Yes, like
we can only hope for such things.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like the old establishment, deep state versus like the new.
Have they forgot their class consciousness?
Yeah,
they're usually the best at that.
Yeah, right. But I think like there's a war happening between like the techno feudal lords and the original feudal lords, right? Like there's like, and Mark Carney, I feel like he's like kind of in the middle, maybe testing the waters. Who's gonna win in the end? He's got one foot in the techno feuds, and then the one foot in the old age, establishment, deep state. So he's kind of playing both sides, and I think he's going to come out, because he's in the middle of the road. I think he's going to come out ahead regardless, because that's what evil people do. They don't give a shit. So
we didn't get much news coming out of that meeting. Like we didn't get any updates coming out of that meeting. He goes, the UK is talking about some of their tariffs finding relief, but mostly just fodder. Did anybody get anything concrete coming out of that sideshow?
The most I've seen reports of is pretty much the meeting behind the closed doors was kind of the same, and the general sense on the politics was you're never going to get much out of that particular meeting. It's the first time. This is the standard meeting that Prime Minister does when they're newly elected. They'll go down to the States, they'll visit the president. It's usually not a very big deal because usually we don't have a fascist as our neighbor, because we've been in a...
Well, didn't Carney say our relationship had changed? It doesn't seem like it's changed all that much at all.
Well,
what's changed?
I don't know about regards to politics. I know people have changed, but yeah, in regards to politics, may or may not. I think that's going to be really determined in the following, I don't know, I'd say next year or so. I think we're going to start seeing something. And again, I feel just... In my view, it's just I think we're going to see some more insanity. And it's not going to be driven by us. It's going to be driven by the south of the border. They're nuts.
Yeah, I think Carney's just mostly placating folks with this persona of elbows up and kind of a nationalist leader. He's a capitalist through and through, and the description more I had is like a kindergarten teacher kind of. They're there, just get your way through it. But why they have to go through these photo ops that cost, like when we're talking about public spending and capping this, like surely if nothing came much of it, that could have been a phone call. But the need for them to go side by side and shake hands and smile and nod really doesn't feed into the campaigning Carney used to scare Canadians into voting for him. I mean, Pierre was one of the threats, but Trump was the other, and he just didn't seem to go into that meeting treating that man anything like the threat he had built Trump up to be, right? He's in Trump crisis mode. He has set his cabinet to this. He has looked at our energy agenda based on this man's behavior, all kinds of, rhetoric. And he goes and just, does a regular old presser with the guy, like nothing's really changed.
Almost like they're friends. Weird.
Almost like they have the same circle of friends. Weird. It is weird. So, yeah, like I mentioned, Carney's doing a victory tour. Now what do we get? We're going to get the king. And what's the date? I meant to look that up before we went on.
May
so he's going to come.
we
have a little bit. I promise we won't talk about this until after the throne speech again, because I am no fan of the monarchy whatsoever, but King Charles is going to come and read the throne speech, which is normally done by the Governor General, which is the representative for the king was Queen. We have lieutenant generals in the provinces. It's a position we don't need. And so I'm glad they're demonstrating that. Can we at least maybe cut out the middleman now? If they're just going to fly over every 4 years and read it them damn selves, we could just like fax them over the bills. Charles can actually sign it, earn his keep. We could save a couple bucks.
But they don't even do that anymore. Like, they haven't done that since we got the Constitution back here in 1984. They're literally just a figurehead that just sits there. Get the face and the money, have HMS on the ships. That's it. That's all they do. We don't even get. We used to send the bills over there for them to do actual royal assent. It's no longer needed. It's all done within house.
It is, but they still have to sign bills. It is still an avenue that folks do try as a matter of last resort. Is the Governor General will have to sign the bill and prorogue government, right? Yeah. So it.
Oh, sorry. I thought you meant like you said we're still going back to UK to send the bills for them.
No, but why can't my argument is just like, why do we even have the governor general, right? So it's supposed to be symbolic, but now he's coming over and actually doing it. So it's not even symbolic anymore. They're rolling this monarch out for a reason, right? So it's hearkening Canadians back to this nationalist roots that we have, which is like a very British born type persona, that is your typical Canadian, right? What they try to sell is the Canadian image, and it's a bit of a power flex. Yes, do you think this is a demonstration more for the Canadian people or for Trump?
I think both. I think they're truly trying to do this for both, because they're definitely trying to send a message over to the U.S. saying, listen, you can rattle as much as you want, but this is a Commonwealth nation. You're going to be seeing all the other nations. They're trying to do the saber rattling in regards to, you can saber rattle as much as you want, but there's more than one nation right now that you're dealing with because of the Commonwealth. Again, Trump doesn't care about this. He's still going to want, I still view Trump as a toddler. He's going to just keep demanding, keep pushing until he either gets it or somebody very loudly says no to him. And the other one is, yeah, absolutely, probably. Like, I'm pretty sure they wanted to have the king to come in here to show that no, to worry, Canadians, we got this all under control. And I'm not going to lie, it seems to be working. People are very excited about the king coming in. I'm like, really?
Oh, Joe, tell me no.
There
like
are
who,
people
liberals?
that are excited. Liberals, I think. Conservatives.
I mean,
there's
small
a fair
L.
amount of yeah. I'm thinking also conservatives too, because conservatives they seem to have a certain affection for it. I know my people from my home province couldn't give a shit, but that's the way the French are. We're not happy with the king.
I don't get the con appeal to the monarchy at all. I mean, they're just so full of
tradition. When it comes to conservatives, they're very big on tradition, and they don't like to make the change. We've had the king forever. They don't want to change that. They don't want to change anything.
They want to separate, but they don't want to change anything. Like, they're just like one hypocrisy after the other.
It is.
Yeah, I'll tell you my perspective on it, because like coming from the conspiracy side of it.
Don't say that. So that makes it seem silly.
It is not conspiracy. It's absolute fact, and it's absolutely things that you can look up and find yourself 100%. But you know what I mean? Like, people don't realize that capitalism is a cult. And so things always sound weird when you're talking about capitalism, but that's because it is foundationally a cult. It's a weird thing. Okay. So yes, there's a lot of ritual and weird things that are tied up in capitalism and the elites of who control capitalism. But I do think that, again, it's kind of like this play between the old world establishment and the new world establishment, because like the British monarch is really they've fallen. They have no real power. They have no real when you consider it against American influence or American technocracy and stuff like that. They're not nearly as influential. And I think Carney is strategically aligning himself with the old establishment. And I think this is another pull from that. One of the connections he has to King Charles or whatever, Prince Charles, is so the Chatham House. So Mark Carney was appointed as the president of Chatham House, which is a incredibly powerful think tank. It's a British think tank. It's also known as the Royal Institute of International Affairs. It was established by King George, I think, in 1920. It was the foundation for one of the foundations of the UN, of the IMF. It helped establish the state of Israel. It is the foundation for major meetings like the Bilderberg meetings. It is a very, very important institution. And King Charles is the figurehead of that. He is they say he's symbolic, but he absolutely makes the appointments, or at least is aware and agrees to the appointments. And Mark Carney was appointed in 2024 as the head of Chatham House, which they've tried to scrub, by the way. When you look up Mark Carney's history, particularly when it comes to his influence in the high-ranking, high-level capitalist entities, these kind of deep state organizations, they're trying to scrub him. You have to intentionally look Chatham House Mark Carney. You won't just find it. He's nowhere on their website currently. If you look up just Chatham House, as they're who we are, they don't mention him at all, which is very interesting, because you'd think they'd be proud that the Prime Minister of Canada came from Chatham House, but they're not. And I think that that's intentional. But there's also like a very interesting connection between, I don't know if you've ever heard of something called the Knights of Malta. Have you heard of this?
Yes.
It's like, yeah.
The name sounds familiar.
I know that this is like truly like a little bit out of left field, but it's not really. So King Charles, who's not even Catholic, Knights of Malta is a Catholic, essentially like a sovereign military that represents the Vatican. It is like the head of the Knights of Malta is Canadian, by the way, and was appointed by the Pope. And but King Charles is a Knight of Malta. He's not even Catholic, and he's a Knight of Malta. He was appointed in 1983, and then Camilla in 2001. There is a lot of speculation. I've seen it multiple times now where they believe that Mark Carney is likely a Knights of Malta as well. He's a he's like a Catholic, and he's very much a religious Catholic, a practicing Catholic. And this is like kind of like their highest orders. You have to be part of the aristocracy to be a Knight of Malta, unless you are Canadian or American. They've made exceptions because we don't really have aristocracy here. But if you're European, you have to be part of the aristocracy to be a Knight of Malta. And so there is connections here between, I think, like this old world establishment, like the Knights of Malta, like they were instrumental in the Crusades. They helped defeat Napoleon. Like they are like an ancient entity. They were established in 1050. They essentially took over the Knights Templar and became like the governing military for the Vatican during that time period. And have been prolific since then. Like they have a huge role. They played a huge role after the Second World War in helping the Nazis flee persecution and allowing them to get to South America. The Knights of Malta have their own passport system that's recognized by most countries in the world. And they issued passports to many, many high-ranking Nazis so that they could escape prosecution and go to South America. So like, this is what the kind of people that, or the kind of institution that it is. It's deeply entrenched in fascism, as well as like in the, as in the Catholic religion. And it's very interesting that all at the same time that the Pope died, that there's a new Pope and he's American. These things I think are all really interconnected. Like I mentioned, synchronicity, right? You see something and you pull the strings, and then all of a sudden you're seeing more and more stuff come from it. So, yeah, it's really, really interesting. Other Knights of Malta, like really high-ranking Knights of Malta, include like the original head of CIA, William Donovan, was a Knight of Malta. Alan Dulles, who's like a whole other terrifying figure. He was like responsible for MK Ultra. He was a Knights of Malta. So like it's very much entrenched in the American deep state, but also like in this old world establishment. And that's what I think you're seeing, like these weird traditions being revived by Mark Carney, whose wife is also like part of the aristocracy. Like his sister-in-law is a lady. She was like married into like this super rich family that ran like a shipping company. So his family is like that. He's entrenched in that aristocracy, you know?
Yeah. And this shit will sell right now because you quite literally have everyone cheering on an economist. We've gone from thinking and articulating that Wall Street is a detriment, right? Like it used to be a slur. Well, it's had its image go up and down over the years, but I thought we had gotten to a point, you know, especially post Occupy Wall Street, where we maybe don't know all the details that you know, but we know they are nefarious. We know they are all connected beyond borders, and we know the role that they play. But now, very publicly across the board, like folks are finding relief in having one of these folks making all the decisions for them, even though, you know, they blame them for the every economic collapse, you know, and I just, it's quite the time to revive those kinds of traditions and start to revere the wealthy again, especially since there's been such a blowback against oligarchs from the way the Americans have been governing, right? Because they've taken their mask off entirely, and that's got to make maybe the oligarchs a little nervous, right? They aren't supposed to be such explicit targets. It's supposed to seem like the government of the people does this, not capital. But that facade is just, it's gone, right? We've invited them right into the prime ministership and find
and
relief
like
in
I
that.
think it's also like people need to understand that the CIA or the intelligence apparatus is Wall Street. Like that is what it is. Like it is a marriage between Wall Street and the organized crime syndicate. That's their origins. That's how they've maintained so much power and influence over the world, is because of that marriage between the two. And that's who they represent. Like that's what their only interest is, to protect American capital. I guess Western capital, because it is a transnational entity and it represents all Western capitalism, because all corporations are transnational. So it is a transnational operation, but its priority is American-based corporations and American capital. So, it's like this weird pull, whereas like, and the crazy thing is that like the techno-feudal lords, so we're talking about like the Peter Thiels and Elon Musks and Mark Andreessens and all these people who are, really high up in the Trump administration. Those are the techno-feudal lords, the people who want technocracy, that kind of stuff. Those people, all of their wealth came from the intelligence apparatus. That's where it came from. All of it. Like it without the intelligence apparatus, Palantir would not exist. Facebook would not exist. Without SpaceX would not exist. There are so many entities that were 100% reliant on the funding coming from the intelligence apparatus to become successful. Google would not exist without the intelligence apparatus. So that is like, it's interesting because it's like there seems to be some sort of divide happening where the old establishment is now becoming a bit fearful in what I can see of the new people who are in charge, those techno,
because they're shaking the boat too much.
Yeah,
they're not doing it the old way. Yeah, no, I can see that. I think Quebec probably isn't all that crazy about the king being invited to do the throne speech. It's probably a sticking point for them to begin with, and now they're just kind of really hyping it up. I imagine that itself will then dominate the news cycle for a little bit. At least there'll be some substance there for us to unpack, even though we're going to have to listen to fucking Charles read it. That is where Carney is supposed to outline what he has in store for us. So, I mean, we've speculated on that enough. He's kind of warned us what to expect. I don't expect that many surprises in the throne speech. So, but we will meet afterwards and see what we think of that. Again, like, we're not even going to hear half the stuff that they have planned for us. That's usually how it goes. A couple of just interesting items, I think, around the election that will take kind of get out of the way before we move on to the NDP and the blowback there. Elections Canada, Joe, did you have any of the details there? Because I have my own little story, but I did read about the 800 some odd votes found in some office in Port Coquitlam.
I do have a bit of information in regards to that, and this is being held, coming in from the CBC, so let me share that with you guys here. And yeah, there's a fair amount of questions in regards to this. So, what is it? Sorry. Over 800 special ballots were mistakenly kept in BC riding, in Election Canada says. Ballots came from 74 electoral districts across Canada, were left in the Port Coquitlam office. I'm probably completely butchering the name. I apologize. Now, the ballots themselves, there's
they were special ballots, right?
They are special ballots, so that means usually they're done in the electoral office or something else. So they're not even at the events, but they're going to be coming in. And because this explains a little bit in regards to, you're going to see some numbers as soon as you can find the table here, which is not in this particular article. Great. But the ballots aren't for one specific riding. They're actually for a spread of different ridings because, again, people can go to the electoral office, go in there. The majority is for one particular, around 500. The rest of them are spread across the other one. Now, a lot of people say, this is not a big deal because you're not going to be able to, it's not going to change the outcome of the election. That's true for the ones that they have covered. And again, I could point out to a couple of ridings that were passed and they're currently still in recounts where they passed at one point by 12 votes. So something like this could affect this. But if you combine this with a lot of the rhetoric that's coming up from the right, particularly in regards to an email that just recently came out from the Conservatives to their donors, saying that the Liberals are trying to steal the election right now by doing these recounts. This is just adding to this entire fire of the whole stolen election thing that we remember seeing from back in 2020, and they're trying to capitalize on this idea of stolen election. For their view right now, it looks like they're just trying to do it for campaigning purposes. But what these idiots don't realize is that when they're doing this rhetoric, some of these guys are not people you want to completely do this BS with, because they're a little unhinged.
And it's not necessarily a vote buying scheme, not buying as in literally, like they're not trying to so much appeal, but set the stage for something, right? Like instill questions and fear, which allows you to legislate, right? And tighten the rules around voting, which just disenfranchises people even more. The United States has been rampant with it. We've talked about that. So it kind of, sets this narrative that like they do it with welfare, right? That there's just so many cheats and so many problems that we are just going to have to crack down on it. And the reality is the instances you're going to see are going to be so few and far between, although they do point to like a problem, like how many other offices out there, why is this happening? What kind of safeguard, did a safeguard catch this, or was it caught kind of by mistake? That's all, stuff that Elections Canada has to work out internally, as you'd expect like any kind of organization or corporation to close holes, right? Everything is kind of fallible. But I have a story as well, because I had to scrap an episode because of Elections Canada. So let me explain. Michael Spears was on here for Rabble Rants a few weeks back, and he was a Communist Party candidate up in Barrie, Ontario, that seemingly almost got 1,000 votes. Like that was the final vote count. I saw it on the website. I have the screenshot from the site. And then Michael was contacted after we recorded an episode trying to unpack like how that could happen. I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot of votes, but trust me, in that area, they were thinking 100 votes, right? Was what they could probably expect, and still ran, which is, another episode altogether. But they got a call that it was actually closer to 150 votes, and no real explanation as to why he was temporarily attributed more than 700 votes that did not belong to him. So I'm not sure if he's gotten clarification since then, but obviously, like kind of through the whole conversation that we had, it meant nothing. Not nothing, but I couldn't release it like that. And that was such an emotional roller coaster for Michael, right? Like he was riding on such a high and like he would like explain everything he'd learned, and he still can, to his comrades so they could try to replicate this. And it held such promise. Like, look how many people you could mobilize in this rural area. Communists, they voted communist, and it went, just right back kind of down. He's probably still proud of his work, but how many, did that happen elsewhere that, we were getting numbers, especially for the smaller parties that ended up getting tidied up that much? Like, those are a lot of votes in the grand scheme of things. But
well, yeah, it's. I mean, even like the writings that we saw, like was it some of these writings flip a couple of times with a recount? So like, if you're invested in this, particular in those, like, yeah, absolutely, you're going to be there. Then suddenly, you won that night, and then about a couple of days later, it's like, oh yeah, that big win you celebrated? Yeah, didn't happen.
Yeah,
didn't get that.
Yeah, so these things, just leave room for the narratives we don't need. But that's not to just dismiss all of the errors either, right? We get into that catch-22 where we're so scared of playing into their narratives to sometimes say like, hey, wait a minute. We saw it with Carney, right? Like they're going after him as a banker and like something to be worrisome about, but we don't want to feed into their narratives because they're our mortal enemies or whatnot. So Yeah, it's I don't want to feed into it too much, but it's something for folks to think about. Uh, Also, we're going to see Andrew Scheer, just like a honorable mention. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about Andrew Scheer. We'll see what he does, but that piece of shit's going to be the interim leader in the House until Pierre can manage to win a seat in Alberta. Did anybody see that sign at the marathon? Before I move on, there was a race being run in Toronto. I think it was Toronto, and a spectator's holding a sign. It's like, don't worry, if you lose, you can always run again in Alberta.
Yeah, yeah, that was good. That
I
was
thought
fantastic.
that was really classic. The protest group that haunted him in Carleton and led to the Big Gold, they're following him there to Alberta. I've
you hear
seen
what
jokes like
what they were playing
Justin
on?
will run for the Liberal, like, to just get
Yeah.
some superstar to run for the Liberals. And
Did you hear
just,
what the longest ballots wants to do?
no.
They want 200 for this one.
Oh
You
my
see,
God.
you pull stunts
It
like
would
that, and
be- Yeah.
we are going to get a crackdown on who can run for candidate. We're going to get more stringent qualifications for nomination processes. And doesn't that just lead me to the next story of the NDP? Can you throw up that article, even though it's
I
got a
can throw
paywall?
up the headline. Yeah,
Piece of shit globe of
absolutely.
mail. I'm swearing a
So
lot
I
today,
got at
even though I'm not
least the headline here.
angry.
Mhm.
Okay, I'll explain it. You don't need to know what the rest is, because I'll explain what the fuck this headline means. And it's a big I told you so moment for me. I'm trying to drop a piece on my Substack today, but I've just been so frazzled. It's like sitting there in the drafts. It'll go up today. And it's kind of like, I see you all looking at who's going to be the next NDP leader. And it's just like, pump the brakes, people. Just pump the brakes for a second. First of all, the problem with the NDP wasn't Jagmeet. I don't like Jagmeet. I never liked Jagmeet. But that's neither here or there, right? You're not going to solve the problem by just going, oh, I love Matthew Green and I'm going to donate money to his campaign and I'm going to share his shit online and we're going to have a new leader that's going to turn the party around. Like that's just not going to happen. And predictably, I'm going to have to update the article to include this. This dropped today, but is totally predictable. And it's exactly what they did in Ontario. The NDP are looking for a new leader. So the interim leader has been appointed. Joe mentioned that earlier. It's Don Davies. This is a man who's gone to Israel, paid by CIJA, lobbied by the Israeli lobby the most out of the NDP. David Mastracci reported on that from the Maple. And either way, he won't do anything. He'll just sit there and give press conferences. It's the director and the inner circle that are working feverishly in the background. And what they're doing right now, and they're telling people that they're doing, is they're going to make it harder for somebody to challenge for the next NDP leader. So not only is the fucking party a shit show with 7 seats, hardly getting rebates in any of the ridings, so they're going to be broke. And so you've got to convince someone to want to helm this with a disgruntled base. Like, this is not even a job many people probably are going to want at this point, but they're going to make it even harder. Why did they do this? Because they have somebody in mind. You can all speculate as to who you think it is. I think Heather McPherson. I don't know if we were on air, but you two speculated that Heather McPherson is go-to. I mean, we'll do that in a second. I'll play the game with you. I'll play the game. But it doesn't really matter. Like, they've already been decided at HQ, and so they'll make it more expensive, right? The Ontario NDP. Can you throw up that other one, Joe? That's in the box there for NDP leader. It's the Ontario NDP's guidelines. So here's a short story, okay? Stay with me now. Andrea Horwath, right? Everyone knew she was going to resign because everyone knew they were going to lose that election badly. They had done the same thing, or they had just disgruntled their base, yada, yada, yada. It's a big, long story, right? They handpicked really boring candidates, suppressed most of the activists from their party, and we knew Andrea was going to resign. And still, when she did, the Ontario Council, the executive there that's supposed to be member-led and voted on, and that's who's supposed to run the party, they refused to call a meeting. They had no leader, and you needed to initiate all kinds of things. All kinds of things needed to be decided, and they sat on that. Why? Because the directors were writing new guidelines. The director, Lucy Watson, was writing new guidelines for who could qualify to be leader. So they increased the amount of money. Oh, you're in like a table of contents.
Trying to find where
Yeah, I'm sorry. When I had it loaded up, there's financial guidelines. If you do a control F for 3 zeros, actually 5 zeros, actually it'll be a comma, but do a control F for 3 zeros, and you'll see that they upped it to $50,000 to qualify to even run as a leader. Plus, you also have to garner like X amount of donations, and there's all kinds of other guidelines. You also have to submit.
Non-refundable.
Yeah, it's non-refundable. The party gets it. You also have to submit yourself to vetting. And one person is responsible in the party for vetting all candidates, and that includes the leadership candidate. And that, again, is Lucy Watson. That was the provincial director in Ontario, and she's now the national director in Ottawa. So you can expect the same. The reason I'm giving you the Ontario story is because you can expect the same. So lots of people wanted to run and replace Andrea, right? She'd been there for many, many years, so had a lot of MPPs. They had put in the time. They thought they could do the job. I mean, we saw Joel Harden suggest he was going to run, Chris Glover, Jill Andrews. I believe there was one more that was interested. But they all mysteriously, and some actually made some statements that they probably have deleted since then, that they were encouraged to drop out or found the requirements too stringent or unclear and weren't able to qualify. And so Merritt got the position uncontested. And so I'm going to go back to like when you're looking at a new leader, you have to keep in mind the obstacles that will be put in place if you are cheering for, let's say, Leah Gazan, who found out after we did that Don Davies was going to be her new boss. That's actually a big green flag, right? That tells you Leah is not part of the inner circle, which you should have already known. And
I think you meant big red flag, not big green.
No, it's a green flag for Leah. Like, she's good people. Good people are excised from the inner circle. You don't want somebody that knew, right? You don't want someone that is sitting there cozy with Anne McGrath and has never stirred the pot with them. Because that means they're okay exactly with the path that the party's taken this whole time, right? And so they're no ally to you. So yeah, Leah famously tweets out 2-3 days ago, yes, go team, way to find out after the media. And this is just like, that's telling you the writing's on the wall there. And now they're at least being honest with the Globe and Mail, saying they want to weed out to the more serious candidates. They mean wealthy, right? And this is how we keep electing the wealthiest amongst us as well. It's just one other tool in the system, right? You need the free time, the contacts, and all the other things that come with politics. But now you quite literally need $50,000, and they're going to shorten the time period you have to raise that money. They want faster, quicker races. Another reason they're doing that is because they don't want us talking about all the reforms that the party needs. The longer that there's a race going on, the more members will say, what are you going to do for the party? You're not running for prime minister right now. You're running to, appease a certain very smaller niche. And they don't want to have to do that with any kind of earnesty. Oh, you brought up Leah's tweet. Yeah.
Tweet,
so. Yeah. Side note, Tom Parkin's daughter works for Jagmeet. So I wonder how he got that scoop.
The interesting thing, because I remember this particular tweet came out. When it came out, I found out about like an hour after it came out, and I'm like, this is not a good look at all. As we were, I was discussing this with a panel at the time. I'm like, this is not a good look, and we're all agreed, like, this is a terrible look. This shows that there's some serious disorganization within the party that's not being addressed, and as you're saying, like, they're running off and doing, like, they've already got their own plans. They're already running up to go do their own thing. And let's be honest here, during the Liberal candidacy, we saw kind of the same shenanigans. Like, it's 50,000 that was for the Ontario. We have no idea what's going to be for the federal. We know it's going to be more. For the goddamn Liberals, it was $375,000. Like, who is going to run for leadership at $375,000? Because I'm pretty sure it's not refundable either. No. And so there's right there. this has always been, as it's a big flag that people keep saying. Like, when you do that kind of thing, you are immediately stating, like, this is not an election for people. This is an election for elite. You need to have like $500,000 just to say hello, and there's no guarantees of anything.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is that they raise it. You're supposed to demonstrate that you can fundraise. And,
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing their information, but I don't give a shit what the liberals are doing, because they don't try to pretend to be the Workers' Party, right? Like, they're not asking for the labor of disabled people and like the poorest amongst us we're desperate to just, get a small amount of victory or power in the legislature, and they just keep upping that ante.
Oh yeah,
So,
no. The reason why I mentioned that specific number is I want you guys to remember that number, because we're going to hear a number from the NDP, and I want to know what it's going to be.
You want to be able to
in
compare.
Comparison. Yeah, I want to be able to compare.
Yeah, it'll probably be at least $50,000, but likely more. I'm not even sure what it is at right now. The NDP's notorious for burying their policies and their rules. So I'll try to see if I can dig that up, but I'm sure, we'll hear about it. And the thing is, again, the same thing will happen is a very small amount of people will make these decisions specifically geared towards their preference. They'll hand it to the executive, who will rubber stamp it, pass it on to council, who will pass it, and then they'll be able to come to the media and say that membership did this, right? Like, that membership stood behind it. And in the meanwhile, you'll have people standing up at council going like, what are you doing? You're cutting this off from so many people. And it was around this time with the Ontario NDP that they kicked me out of the party, because we made such a stink about what they were doing. That they were cutting members out of this process, that they were basically appointing a new leader. Real shenanigans went on, and they did not want us drawing attention to that. So,
look at you causing shit.
That was the straw that broke my back and theirs. Probably they were done with me, and I knew that there was just no hope for the party at that point. So I was happy to try to burn it down from the inside, and I guess they realized, which is fine. But yeah, so just a heads up for folks, like, kind of getting really excited about the leadership race. I encourage you to read my Substack later. It details a few more examples of what happens during leadership races, and some of the barriers you're gonna come across. Maybe you can jump over them. I don't know. But at least know what they are, right?
Absolutely.
We talked about Trump earlier and how I felt about Carney meeting with him and whatnot. We'll shelve that. But there's a couple of news items here. Two or three here. Examples of where the policies that he is making are, actively harming folks and targeting people who live in Canada or our infrastructure in some way, right? So there's a story there from the CBC, asylum seekers. It's a family from El Salvador, which has been in the news with the Trump administration. Who knows what deals they've made with El Salvador and their asylum seekers, but what you're getting, and this is not going to be a unique story, is a family knowing what's in store for them under a Trump administration, the danger undocumented people have. And so they are risking coming over the border, even though there's the Safe Third Country Agreement, and trying to seek asylum in Canada. And the result is they are getting locked up and having to and they're so desperate that they just keep repeating this over and over again, trying to get a different result. And, we talked about the border last week because we were unpacking what Carney has in store for us. And he's talked about beefing up the border. He's talking about stopping more of these people from being able to come over and seek asylum from us, even though he's commenting on the deplorable conditions that Trump is creating. Mind you, I'm not sure I've heard Carney comment on the treatment of migrants at all, or the use of ICE and all of the shit that's going on. He's strictly stuck to tariffs and how it's economically impacting us. But this is the human aspect of, spending that money on the border. There was another story there. I won't get into the Snitch site yet, but the attacks on trans youth and healthcare and just trans people in general in the United States has led to a large influx of asylum seekers there, right? Families of trans children or trans people trying to seek asylum here in Canada. And I'm not sure how that is going to fly, considering the relationship Carney's trying to maintain still. So
I've got a lot in regards to this. I want to rant. There's also a rumor right now that I've been hearing that U.S. officials are also doing surprise inspections on people trying to come across the Canadian border on the way out of Canada. Sorry, out of the United States into Canada. So they're trying to inspect and catch and go with them. There's no confirmation on this yet. I'm still trying to find out if that rumor is true or not. But if it is true, it's also unsurprising. The first thing that I've been really screaming about is we do need to get rid of that safe third country rule. I'm sorry. The idea of the entire agreement with the safe third country is that the U.S. was the same as us in regards to our policies and immigration and just the general safety. The U.S. is not that right now. Not even close. They're deporting their own damn citizens for shit's sakes right now to El Salvador. Like, this is a dangerous master's country, and for us to consider them to be the same as us when it comes to immigration? No, not even close, not even the same, not even similar at all. That rule should not be there. People are going to Roxham to jump across the border so they have a chance to do asylum seeking. This is why Roxham Road exists, because of that stupid safe third country rule. If we didn't have that, none of this would be required, because people would be able to go to port of entries and do it there instead. And yeah, we're going to get more entries coming in. We called this months ago, saying that if Trump gets in there and starts putting in a lot more aggressive stuff, and we've been seeing. I've recently put in a post about how about a month ago I had a post in regards to the contracts changing in regards to desegregation, in regards to federal requirements for desegregation of restaurants and bathrooms and so on in the federal contracts. Now they've also rescinded the desegregation orders in regards to schools in the states. And they're quoted just the department saying this rule that was required on schools is a historic wrong. Like, that's a huge message for them to say that, desegregation, the order to desegregate these schools is a historic wrong. This is horrible. This is not a safe country anymore. And we need to stop this agreement because this is just enforcing like, no, they're still good. They're not. I mean, like, we need to push. We need to push the government. We need to get a petition up there on the Parliament side saying we need Canada to remove this safe third party agreement. It's not right anymore.
I know, but at the same time, you talk about treating Trump like a toddler, and this would just inflame tensions, which is something Carney just doesn't seem willing to do, right? And he has continually placated the conservatives when it comes to their anti-immigration rhetoric and promised tighter border control. So I get it. Like, petition is one way to pressure the legislature. And I'm sharing a campaign by Amnesty International. That has been renewed. The date on that is, early February, but they have been calling for this, or at least a revisiting of the agreement since I was in university. So before Trump, before, Obama built a lot of those detention centers for migrants. So this has not been a safe space, even under Democrats. So, but I am just very doubtful, and that isn't to discourage people from trying, but that Carney will actually go at this part of it, because he's maintaining, even Jagmeet, in his Law and Order answer, suggested that the border was a source of insecurity. So folks can join on the amnesty campaign that they have there on their website, but also the Migrant Rights Network are big advocates of looking at that legislation or, changing the narratives around how people view freedom of movement and borders.
I also want to mention that part of the reason too why Canada is so part of the reason why the Safe Third Country Agreement was installed, in my opinion, it was by Paul Martin, the Liberals, right, in 19 whatever, however many years ago, and then expanded by Justin Trudeau. But it's also because those migrants end up in the for-profit prison system, which is most of these politicians, Canadians, and their benefactors are heavily invested in. So there is like a profit model to this as well for ensuring that migrants end up back in the United States so that they end up in the slave labor market through the for-profit prison system. So there's also that little hidden gem to the whole thing, which is why it's very unlikely that someone like Mark Carney, who has a lot of benefactors, a lot of people that he is responsible to make sure stay wealthy, would ever change this in any way. So,
yeah, no, I'm sharing there again, and I shared it in the comments. The Action for Migrant Rights Network. I mean, that's no shade to Amnesty, but they just don't build power from below in the same way that these folks do. So, I mean, if I had my preference, I'd point you that way. But I want to just bring up one more kind of Trump. I mean, there's just so much to keep track of, and we do try to generally cover Canadian politics. But there was an article by The Breach. Can you share that for me, Joe? I've had too many tabs open now. It's smoking.
Okay. I got it.
The laptop's smoking. It's
it.
not really, but so I do try to also share Canadian independent media as much as possible. And this week I picked The Breach for their piece on Trump's Snitch line. So he has a website, or the health department of all fucking departments has this Snitch line online form for folks to fill out to report on doctors, and I won't even use the terminology that they use, but who perform gender affirming care on children. And when users went to report, the drop down boxes, sometimes you go to order stuff and they don't have the provinces available. You end up having to put your postal in as a zip code, and they're like, that wasn't the case here. No. You could pick from all of the provinces and even report through Canadian Armed Forces. So whoever designed the website allowed people to report doctors in Canada who were providing gender affirming care. They did take this option away after media inquiries, but they never explained why. And let's just say it was some sort of error. They never intended to collect the Canadian data. The truth is, they already did. It was up for quite some time. So a lot of people are worried, along with some of the discussions that we've been having, where watch lists are created. People are stopped at the border, not because they're carrying drugs or weapons or, don't have valid documentation. That's another discussion. But they're not being allowed into the United States or through the United States because of their political views. So obviously doctors in Canada who are possibly on this list will have that worry. And, they did reach out to the Canadian Armed Forces and a few doctors, provinces that tried to assert, absolutely, we would never let this determine what we do. But we know that that's not entirely true, right? Nobody lives in a vacuum, and these pressures add up. Quebec, when they were asked, they just felt like it was important to assert that they didn't perform surgery, gender affirming surgery on youth. So they almost even fed into it a little bit rather than stepping back from it. So, this again comes into play with the border control and how Trump feels like he can intervene in Canadian politics and healthcare, which is even scarier. No comment on that one? You guys just stunned?
My brain's gone to all sorts of conspiracy areas.
Oh no!
In regards to did they include the Canadian provinces because they were just anticipating and planning the 51st state, so they're trying to get ahead on that. Are they building lists? Absolutely. I don't believe that they're not. There's, as I'm sure everybody here on the panel is, we all, I can speak for myself though, only, but I have no intentions of going to the United States anytime in the near future. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't make it across the border, burner phone or not. It's there. Everything around this is like, well, they're fascists down there. Would they be doing this? Yep. I think is my only view on it.
Yeah. Yeah, they seem like silly little things when they all just keep adding up, right? It's just, the article there talks about infringing on our sovereignty, and I think maybe that's a bit of a stretch. But maybe that's just, it's all relative compared to what all the other things that they're doing. This seems like a minor infringement on our sovereignty. It's more of like a data collection rather than a direct attempt to influence, because I don't think they wanted us to know that we were collecting this information, or that they were collecting that information.
It's a minor thing, but that could lead to a major thing later. Like, let's be honest here. I mean, anybody going to the border now that's been put on this list, regardless, and again, due process is optional now in the States. Anybody who gets put on this list could just get, you're a foreign person who doesn't have due process, and you apparently ended up on this list about gender affirming care. Yeah, you're going to El Salvador. That's it.
Pretty much. Yeah, so again, it's just like another reason why we shouldn't normalize normal relations with the US. I'm not 100% sure like what I expect Carney to do with such an irrational being. I'm glad I'm not in the position of prime minister, I suppose, because I feel like there's just all these extra rules of engagement that folks are playing by, or that they will allow politicians to play by, right? They're giving him leeway because that's just what you do, right? That's just what you do. But Trump is behaving in a way where he doesn't care what norms have been set. And I feel like maybe folks have to think of that when they're dealing with him as well, a little bit more out of the box. But let's move.
I'm curious.
No,
I was going to say, do you know, did they mention, I didn't read this article, but did they mention like what the surveillance company was? Like, who is it that's doing the surveillance or the data collection? Because that's
it is the health department, and it's gone through their National Health Service. So
okay, so the
who is administering that for them? I don't know, like who their contract would be with.
I know who that is. If it's the National Health, it's Palantir. So just so that you have like an idea of like, it's 100% Palantir. So Palantir runs like their like entrenched, or like their all their little programs like Gotham, and like they have, of course, like Peter Thiel is like a super nerd. So all of his little like subsidiaries are named after like ridiculous things. But there's like Gotham is like one of the ones I think that runs through the National Health Institute, but they and their National Health Services, but they collect the data, and they're a big data company. So I'm not surprised. By the way, Palantir has an office in Ottawa, by the way. And the head of Palantir for Canada sits on the advisory board for Mark Carney, just as a little red flag there. Yeah,
Jesus,
head of
it's like
I
picture Ashley's wall.
US advisory council.
Ashley, do you have a wall up there with string and photographs?
Yes. Can I show you my conspiracy wall? Just 1 second, okay?
Oh my God, there is a wall. Yes.
I am leaning in for this. Oh, Ashley, don't show that to everybody.
You can't really read it from there. But yes, I absolutely do. There's too much.
You need a bigger one. It's full.
I know.
Do you know they have whiteboard paint? You could do the whole wall. Yeah. What? They have whiteboard paint. Like you can just make anything whiteboard.
Or even MacTac kind of thing. Yeah.
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 Whoever Ashley lives with is going to be upset with me.
It needs to be a little bit like refined. Like it's mostly just like I was writing a lot of random stuff on there, so it needs a little bit more refinement. But yes, I do have a conspiracy board. I do. But yes,
I don't know why I was surprised. I think I was just pleased to be affirmed there. All right,
feeling confirmed.
Yeah, it is, and it adds to the whole vibe. But I don't like see we make fun, but That's hard because like the stuff Ashley has, like I cannot believe the media didn't dig. I mean, I can believe it, but it's so salacious and conspiracy. Like they love that stuff, and the conservatives love that stuff. And I think it speaks so much volumes that they don't blow it up. Like you know that like these open a can of worms that just reveal all their shady business and the fact that they're interconnected like
this was my whole
I hear you.
point during the election, that it was a sheep herding off, that it was meant that nobody was bringing up these insane things. Like Mark Carney is the most deep state that you can be. Like he's so entrenched in the deep. I just don't even understand. Like if the Canadians were so worried about becoming Americanized and becoming the 51st state, like if you wanted to win an election, why would you not bring this up in like all of its glory? Okay, because it's so vast and it's so expansive. Like if you just like every corner you turn, you find Mark Carney. You find him everywhere. It's
Maybe
wild.
it's too
So
complex. You know,
I
like
don't
people's
think it
attention
is.
span is so short. Every time like I write a
Yeah.
piece, the person helping me
But
reminds
like
me
it
like,
was
you know, most people aren't going to get past the third paragraph. I'm like, damn it. That shit's at the
yeah.
end, man.
Yeah, but like I mean, that's the
Stick till
thing, is
the
that like it's
end.
just, I don't know, people hate, like they were like so, especially like people's like hate of like the Rothschild family and the Rockefellers and stuff, and like these people are like fully entrenched in that, and like there's so much deep state stuff in it that like you think, especially like for the conservatives, where their fan base is really like involved in that, they really hate like the deep state, you know, that's what they really hate. So you think that they would have like really taken the reins on it, but they didn't. Nobody did anything. They just basically were like, meh, I guess that's just what it is. And you're like,
Yeah.
don't. It was intentional. There's no other way around it. But yeah, are we? I would
They
like to tell
all
my
played into
trilateral
it.
story, but I don't know if you have that later on.
I
I've got another
don't
headline that works.
do that before we talk about.
Okay. Let's talk about the
And you do
trilateral.
too, Joe.
I
Okay,
got
go
another
into
one
the
that works
trilateral.
at third place.
Okay.
If you're looking at,
So
go ahead.
So, okay, so to understand a little bit about what like the punchline of this whole story that I'm going to tell, we have to understand a couple of things. You have to understand what the Trilateral Commission is. So the Trilateral Commission is a meeting that is held annually. It is an exclusive meeting. You are invited. You do not get to just go. You don't get to assign someone or you send delegates. Like the people who run the commission, the steering committee, and the chairs, they choose the people who go every single year. They choose their membership. So that's really important to know. They only choose people who align with their values and people who are have power and influence. Okay, so like we're talking about, they invite like very high-ranking people in the U.S. government, like people who have gone many times over, like Madeleine Albright, Colin Powell, Condoleezza Rice. Like you have the heads of the CIA going. You have, people from Google, like Eric Schmidt. You have the head of the Rockefeller Foundation, like very, very high-ranking people. The president of Visa, the president of MasterCard. You have the Larry Fink from BlackRock. Jeffrey Epstein used to go, by the way, Jeffrey Epstein. So like we have like really, really high-ranking, like powerful people. Henry Kissinger was the chair of this meeting for the majority of the time it was around, and until he died. He died last year or something like that. Mike Bloomberg also goes, like very, very high-ranking people. I'm telling you this for a reason, because it's important to understand the gravity of this meeting. The purpose of this meeting is to discuss the outcomes or the priorities of the trilateral countries. So that's like Asia, Western Europe, and North America. In Asia, I mean, not Asia, Japan, Western Europe, and North America. That they're discussing the priorities of these three geographical zones in the context of capitalism. So their purpose is to ensure the proliferation of Western capitalism around the world, and the priorities of capital are carried out around the world. So they meet every year. It's a very deep state meeting. Okay, like the intelligence apparatus has claimed this meeting as their own. Henry Kissinger was the head of state of the State Department, which is an arm of the CIA, by the way. Like it's always been, it's like the government arm or the White House arm of the intelligence apparatus. So it's always been that meeting. And so I was looking just through some of it because Mark Carney was appointed to, in 2021, the Trilateral Commission Task Force on Global Capitalism and Transition. And so I was looking through like kind of like where he is, or like how, when he had, if he had attended, if he was on any of the membership lists. I couldn't find any, but they only go back so many years. But I stumbled upon something that I thought was really interesting. In 2022, I noticed that Heather McPherson from the NDP was on their membership list. Now, again, she is attending this meeting alongside Henry Kissinger, alongside Larry Fink, like huge titans of industry, some of the most powerful people in the world.
And we're sure it's the same. We're sure it's the same Heather McPherson.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah. If you click on her, it says MPP for Canada on her, like her little thing here. If you go down, it's 2022, so you have to look at the 2022 one. But yes, if you look at her, it says she's an MPP in for Canadian House Commons.
I see Jean Charest. I'm scrolling through their leadership.
Yeah,
for folks.
There's also
just for fun.
There's also a Chrétien's, like maybe a Chrétien descendant who attends as well. But you see like Lawrence Fink, that's Larry Fink. But yeah, like it's just a very very deep state meeting. But I was like, Heather McPherson. So I was like, is it the same? I looked it up. It absolutely is the same. The only other MP that was invited to the meeting that year was Steve McKinnon, who's a Liberal MP, and he's the Minister of Jobs and Families currently, which is the entity that wrapped up, like that took over the Minister of Labor, and basically all the DEI positions were wrapped up into this guy's portfolio, which is interesting in itself. I think that was like strategic that he was invited as well. But like I said, you have to be invited. They choose people for their power and influence. So Heather McPherson was chosen by the Trilateral Commission for whatever reason to attend. I believe that this was must have been the communication that happened, or the strategy that was implemented here or decided on was that there would be some sort of decay of the NDP that was already in motion, but definitely like a more rapid decay, in order to ensure that their selected candidate, who I believe they knew already then that it was going to be Mark Carney, wins the next Canadian election. And I think that Heather McPherson is going to be the next leader of the NDP for this reason, that will be her reward for ensuring that the priorities of the Trilateral Commission were carried out. So a really random but interesting find, because I don't think we necessarily as Canadians think that our MPPs or not MPPs, but MPs are our Canadian politicians are on the same playing field as some of these really powerful people, but they are. And they're going to these meetings that are specifically meant to decide on the outcomes of outcomes of capitalism, of Western capitalism of that year. And the majority of people who attend the Trilateral Commission are also attending other major meetings, like the Bilderberg meetings, which is
where do they find the time?
What's that?
We don't keep these people busy enough that they have all this time to keep meeting and plotting against us.
Right. They really do. And that
steal the share for a second there.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just to the point for Ash. That definitely does look like that confirms that it is the same Heather McPherson, Member of Parliament, Edmonton, Strathcona, Alberta.
Well, actually, I'd be curious. I didn't play the game with you folks on who you both thought Heather McPherson would be the next one. That surely feeds into what you're thinking.
Yes and no. So for Ash, I think that's a yes. For me, I've got some weird questions with regards to her. I've been looking at her. I'm like, even before all this came out, I'm like, I think Heather McPherson is going to be the one that's going to be there, unless they go unless they Carney it and bring somebody from the outside that we're not thinking about, which is always still a possibility. I'm not sure who they'd bring up. Short of somebody like Charlie Angus, I don't know. The party is such a shambles. You really, really need to have some sort of person to get in there to pick it up. But the one thing, because as we've also listened to, there's a certain amount of Zionism, especially in the background when it comes to the NDP. It's still some sort of management that's running it quite a bit. And Heather McPherson's has been pretty vocal to be supporting Palestine. So I'm like, is that going to get resolved? Is there going to be some changing in messaging? Like, is she going to have to do something in regards to that? And that's my only question as to what are they going to do. They can put her into the seat of authority. Absolutely. You can manipulate the rules. We've seen it. But what are they going to do there?
But she just wore a pin. She made a few statements. Like, she hasn't like supported Palestinian resistance by any means. And I was always of the opinion that, the NDP is such a controlled environment. Heather McPherson doesn't say whatever she wants to say. She's told, all of them are told what they can and can't say, and they have to stay in those lanes. And they gave Matthew Green a lane, and they gave Heather McPherson a lane, and they gave Nikki Ashton a tiny bit of wiggle room, right? She was able to talk about the CRA and some of the other more mundane items, to be honest, but I think that was always a ploy to maintain that kind of we're the only place for progressives. They can't let go of that completely because it's part of their duty to wrangle all of those folks in one place and tire the shit out of them, right? And once you give up that facade altogether. So I think they've allowed Heather to walk this really fine line where, you can't please the Zios 100% no matter who you are. I mean, you have to be, even BB isn't enough for some of them. You know what I mean? So I don't know if they're so much interested in courting like the Zionist lobby or just kind of walking a fine enough line that you don't become like massive targets. And I think they've been pretty good at doing the bare minimum. Surely they must be able to go to even B'nai B'rith and be like, hey man, we can't just abandon the issue altogether. We got to give our members something. What if we, like, a watermelon pin? We'll let you guys, you can do a whole email campaign. We'll pretend we didn't see it. But, it's very, very controlled. And the only other option I see for HQ is Boularice, and try to, stoke Quebec to a certain degree. But otherwise, I don't know. I'm kind of, Heather could definitely be a top choice just because she's been afforded the second biggest profile other than Jagmeet. And the same thing happened in Ontario. If you watched Andrea, the way that typically these parties work is like you only focus on the leader. Even when you go to other ridings to prop up other campaigns, you really are still like the rule is only hold up the leader's name in the sign, and it's very controlled like that. But Merritt Stiles was always afforded extra room in those 4 years before Andrea resigned. Like, she held town halls all over the province in the way that a premier would. I mean, she had the education portfolio, so it was kind of, but they only allow you a spotlight. You can't steal one. So they've given Heather that spotlight for a reason. Grooming members to see her as a leader.
Yeah, for sure. It sounds like when I saw her name, I was like, oh, this makes sense. And I think it validated, for me, it was validation that it was like an actual controlled opposition, that it was a sheep herding op the whole time. But, talking about like the party imploding, like all of their money being gone. Well, not really if you have the Rockefellers being the ones dictating whether or not, deciding on the trajectory of the party, right? Because that's a Rockefeller meeting, the Trilateral Commission. So that's big, big, big money. So if they're the ones just, paying you in the background, who cares if you lose all your seats? Who cares if your party implodes? They're going to pay your bills, right? And that's their strategy. And that's been their strategy since, they've been around as long as the good old CIA has been around, the Rockefeller. Well, they've been around long before that, but they have been like entrenched as long as the CIA has been around. So they are like,
let's say you don't think politicians take money while they're there. I mean, they do. They might. I mean, we know Mulrooney was taking envelopes of cash, right? So that's it's also what awaits them when they're done. I mean, a politician can only sit for so long. It's not a long-term job for most people. And the NDP, have publicly, along with other parties, this is like standard, but the NDP weren't always this way, but now they pride themselves on what they call being professionalized, so that, experts run the party. And those are the kind of people that can be employed by lobbyist firms and PR firms out there. It's become a place where careers are built rather than revolutions born. So that is also part of it too, right? Remaining very appealing to capital to be rewarded. It's always funny to see where these folks end up after. I'm waiting to see what Jagmeet's job will be post leader of the NDP. If he leaves politics, it's usually very, very, very telling. So yeah, like the people making the decisions there, they need friends for when they get fired for losing an election. Because, the NDP doesn't seem to fire anybody. They just shuffle them off to another province. But eventually I think you got to run out of somewhere to go. But let's go on. Let's stop talking about the NDP just momentarily. Lower my blood pressure. Not that talking about Ford is going to help. In case you didn't know, Ontario has a measles outbreak, and we've had it for a few months, except you wouldn't know because our health ministry is doing almost nothing about it, almost like they did nothing or do nothing about COVID. Just to give you an idea of what an outbreak is, this isn't hyperbole, although it is mostly affecting unvaccinated people. You fucking anti-vaxxers again, I swear to God. But so for example, from 2013 to 2023, how many measles cases do you think we had? If you've already looked at my notes, don't cheat. Joe, Ashley, how many do you think we had in the decade before 2023? A decade.
I'd say
maybe like a couple hundred.
Okay. 101. How many do you think we've had this year? Anybody know? Did you check? You don't know. Oh, I'm glad you're here.
I'm just
1,453. We have
Jesus.
1,453 cases this year. Just 211 were reported last week in Ontario. So we laugh at Texas and RFK and the mess they found themselves in. In reality, Ontario's outbreak is much worse. And they've again left it up to the regional health, what do we call them?
Regional health
units, thank you, to respond on their own. So it's up to you on how responsive your individual regional health response is. So
business as usual, little to no support from the province.
That's right. We don't even have public service announcements. Some boards are, there is an initiative to up the vaccination rate. Again, that's an effort born mostly regionally. Some are being successful, some not. I mean, for one of my youngsters supposed to get the vaccine between, two ages, between 4 and 6, and I just took them right away as soon as I heard about the measles outbreak. A lot of it has been confined not just to unvaccinated people, but there are clusters in communities that tend to be more unvaccinated than others. In Ontario, I don't want to single any particular ethnicity or religion out. It's just that's how it happens. So they are going into, where a school is heavy hit because this community is there and they're largely unvaccinated. They are focusing in on these hotspots and trying to do both the education that you need to get people to vaccinate themselves and then obviously roll out the vaccine. They're suggesting folks who haven't been vaccinated or who were vaccinated after 1970 and who are adults now to go get reassessed on whether or not they need another vaccine to protect you from the measles. We do have massive amounts of hospitalizations considering it's fucking measles. So
I know I got mine done 10 years ago. It was mostly for a scare because I never had chickenpox. So at the same time, they also gave me the MMR at the same time after they also gave me the chickenpox. But yeah, absolutely. It's not a terrible thing at all, especially if you're my age, around 50.
Yeah, are you
I
supposed
am
to
already
get your MMR
vaccinated.
every 10 years?
I am already
every 10
vaccinated,
years?
and I was just revaccinated again about 10 years ago when they were doing the same thing in regards
Yeah,
to,
but
because I
like, is
never
it
had
like standard
chickenpox.
practice? Yeah, but
You
isn't
mean
standard practice like, I don't know, my doctor, whenever I
Mhm.
go, every 10 years I get my DTaP and I get my MMR every 10 years. So I
I,
thought that
I,
was just what everybody did. Maybe not.
I think
no?
everybody should, but I know in regards to me, it hasn't really been like that. They did give me, I think, tinnitus.
Yeah, you
Kind
have
of
to get
Yeah,
your
you have to
standard,
get
but
tetanus shot
DTaP.
every 10 years, or
Yeah.
yeah.
I lied once when I went to the hospital because I didn't want it. I'm like, oh, yeah, I just got it. My family was so pissed off at me. I'm not anti vax. I'm just
Very
a weenie
dangerous.
when it
Yeah.
comes to needles. And I thought I was Miss Tough Woman there. Don't do that. Don't do that. But no, but you have to remember actually, even if like that's what your doctor is doing as good practice, how many Ontarians don't even have a family doctor?
True,
So
true, true.
to be
Yeah,
honest, I
I
don't even,
wasn't sure.
yeah,
Yeah, I
to be
wasn't
honest,
sure
like
if
I
like
don't
it's
even
just
know how
not
those
common
people are
practice.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, how do those people get a measles shot? I don't have any advice for you. I wish I had known before I
Well,
come on, like, how you would possibly get
our benevolent premier and Ontario government would be doing
shoppers.
vaccination clinics in all sorts of areas. They'd probably team up with shoppers, and they would start pushing out vaccines at a provincial level to as many of the areas as possible, maybe covering, let's say, the entire southern Ontario, into the hotspots, and all around the outside. Maybe also hit the large urban centers like Toronto and Ottawa, just to make sure that you can contain the spread in regards to, by taking care of all the arteries as well as the hotspots, as well as just the entire blanket. And if you can,
Yeah.
just extend it to the entire province,
Yeah.
because
I mean, that's what you should
that'd be the good thing to
expect.
do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Um,
what we should be getting. That's what we should be expecting. Unfortunately, what we should get and what we are going to get don't always meet.
no, and
Well,
that
and
pisses
like,
me
I
off
mean,
because,
oh,
go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, no.
I was gonna say, I mean, because they've given all these like extra privileges to pharmacists. So why can't pharmacists do it? My pharmacist is the one who gave me my flu shot. So you'd think
Yeah.
like
They were
that
doing
would be an
COVID.
easy way. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It'd be a really easy way to roll out a vaccine that way. Just make sure that your pharmacists have it, and then they could have your vaccine record, and if you need it, you get it.
Yeah, I'm not sure like what the logic is when you're nickel and diming at this point. How much would it cost to roll out vaccines in this way? I mean, you've already done it. You know what the infrastructure looks like. You attempted to do it well with COVID. You maybe learned some lessons. The regional health units surely have, right? So it wouldn't take much for them to do it. Do they think there's like a political risk to, I mean, measles isn't COVID. I mean, COVID is real. It's airborne. I still mask when I go out in public. So you can imagine how incredibly frustrated I am by this, but I don't really understand and I don't talk to conservatives all that much. So or anti-vaxxers, but do they think measles aren't real or just like not a threat? Or do you think they would see Ford as doing something positive if he addressed this? I'm just trying to understand why they're not doing
I
anything at
haven't.
all.
Yeah, I haven't heard their rhetoric in regards to the measles yet.
I think it's just no comment.
So far, there hasn't really been much. But again, a lot of these guys, this goes back to the original Wakefield scare, which was MMR was causing autism. This is where the entire thing started from. So
Yeah.
it's you're not dealing with a new conspiracy for this one. You're going back old school for this one,
Oh, good Lord.
and
Okay.
it's tiring, it's frustrating, and I completely agree. But that's where I'd start in regards to what are they thinking. But the same thing they did with Jenny McCarthy, who started pushing this bullshit out. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and
That
RFK is very much anti-vax too. So, and
Yeah.
I think he's been on. He's said quite a few times that he doesn't think the measles are like anything to be worried about. That it's nothing. That you'll just be fine if you get the measles. Like, okay. But yeah, and I mean, he has his autism. What is the autism registry that he's doing? Which all kind of aligns, I guess. Because if they think it's caused by the MMR vaccine, and then if you have autism, they're gonna put you on a registry. Just
you
like
don't
some
have
other.
autism,
Oh,
you are
good. Another
autistic.
list. I think it's like, oh, good. Another list that they're keeping. That
Mhm.
can't be bad.
Hold on, I just want to make a correction. We are autistic. We don't have autism. It's not like a suitcase I carry around that I can get rid of. But I didn't catch it from anywhere, right? It matters. Sorry. And also I see folks talking about people being non-verbal. The preferred term is actually non-speaking, because a lot of assumptions are made when we use language like non-verbal, like they don't have language or any ability to communicate. It's actually just they are not speaking. And we unpacked the whole RFK, and we will again in more detail. That's just like too much emotional heavy lifting for me at the moment. But yes, it's all interconnected. I'm sure that helps explain Ford's inaction, or just like general attitudes towards a lot of healthcare in general, right? Like not just vaccines, but the healthcare system, and how people think about disabled folks. How they'd rather their kids catch measles than to be neurodivergent is
Eugenics.
kind of it's heartbreaking to hear. As an autistic person, you know, it's gut-wrenching. Like folks would rather risk death than be like me, right? Like, you know, it's hard to hear. Let's move to the disruptive updates so we can cheer ourselves up a little bit. Some of them don't always end well. Calls to action, a lot of suppression around protests. So some of the updates we're going to give obviously mention a police response, but it does show you that folks are tirelessly rising up again and again and again. And I think one of the best examples of this is Columbia University students. Joe, are you,
I got everything. So,
okay.
This takes a minute to try to get everything in place.
Okay, let me set the stage then.
There you go.
A little bit. So, Columbia University has been one of the hot spots when it comes to student encampments for Palestine. You've got to kind of think way back when, I'm going to take you back, like November 2023, they were one of the first encampments to or first coalitions to really start in earnest. And almost within that first month, following October 7th, Columbia University, just to kind of give you the vibe of administration there, they banned Jewish Voices for Peace. Okay, they also banned Students for Justice in Palestine at the SJP Club. And so in response, the students formed an even larger coalition that they call Columbia University Apartheid Divest. And that's when the work really started. They went and pissed these students off something big. And so they started up an encampment. This was in April. And I don't know if you remember back in April of 2024, a bunch of university presidents were called in front of Congress. You know, like we see these on TikTok all the time, the big talking heads down to the little desks, and asking them about these anti-Jewish protests happening all over their campuses, right? What are you doing to crack down on them? How could you let it get like this? It wasn't like, how can we understand what's happening with our youth, right? It's like that kind of vibe. So a lot of
that'd go against their APAC money.
Yes, this is an important performance for every fucking member on Congress, right? They're just dying to get at the mic and grill these presidents. And a lot of the university presidents, thankfully, made statements about free speech. They pushed back, going like, these aren't anti-Jewish protests. This is students expressing themselves, yada, yada, yada. Not Columbia. I mean, they did get up there and they're like, oh no, we crack down on anti-Semitism. It's similar to Harvard, just trying to prove their case by saying, no, we are complying. We're as authoritarian as it gets. Like, please don't cancel our grants, right? That's what's the threat is too, that Trump, he says he's actually already canceled hundreds of billions of dollars of grants to Columbia because of what they allowed to happen on their campus. So that very same day that their president gets called before Congress, they set up the encampment. And the very next day, cops came in, they attacked them, they arrested 100 students.
Well, they started by entering the library.
No, that was most recently.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. Spoiler alert. Okay, so this was back last year, right? Where all the encampments were started, and it got 100 arrests on the very first day. It was very violent, and that didn't stop them. I mean, they were sleeping on tarps because they took their tents away. Eventually, they put the tents back up. like 4 days after the cops had raided. It only lasted 14 days in the end, but it was one of the more defiant campuses, and there was another 100 arrests when they finally did clear the encampment. And so this has been percolating, and then you get the arrest of Mahmoud Khalil, right? This is the Columbia University student, Palestinian Columbia University student, who is trying to be deported by the State Department, by Trump, despite all the objections of judges and whatnot, and for simply being an activist, a Palestinian activist. Like, they're very forthcoming. No one has accused him of terrorism or anything like that. And Columbia just coughed him up, right? He wrote a letter saying, I'm afraid for my life. I'm being doxxed. I'm being attacked and likely spied on. And Columbia did nothing but invite ICE in, and they've really kind of terrorized their students since as well, like allowing ICE to raid buildings. There's been responses from the faculty. It's a shit show. And now, just yesterday, they rose up yet again, right? So they've got $14 billion in endowments they're trying to get out of weapons, but also they have demands around Mahmoud Khalil, right? And the other students that are facing charges and possible deportation. So here's what they did. Now, Joe, they started by entering the library.
One security guard who cannot handle this. And then moving over to the Rebel police presence, because of course they will. During this time, they're inside the library. And police respond with like, all right.
Let's go. Media, we're gonna have to move again.
Followed by, I think, one last video. And
yeah, one of the students was injured as well.
Oh, I'll have that.
That's showing just how many helicopters were there to surveil them from the sky. I mean, these are students inside a fucking library. So here's the statement from the students inside. They've renamed the university, obviously. That is one of the tactics, folks renaming streets and libraries and universities. Despite over 3 hours of kettling and assault by Columbia Public Safety, we continue to hold the line. We are facing one of the largest militarized police forces in the world. Deputized public safety officers have choked and beaten us, but we have not wavered. We refuse to show our IDs under militarized arrest. We refuse to go down quietly. We will not be useless intellectuals. Palestine is our compass, and we stand strong in the face of violent repression. Long live the student intifada. Every week we will give updates from campus uprisings, which are surely just to escalate. I'm going to skip to my activist tip of the week. We'll come back and do more disruptive updates, but it's just so directly related to this. Last year, Columbia was such a hotbed for Palestinian resistance that they had to cancel convocation or graduation, the ceremonies for students. And so we are at that time again where some students have earned their degrees and want to go get them, but they're going into an institution completely complicit in the genocide, the same institution that has been sending police after them, arresting them and their friends, and making life difficult, right, for students on campus to protest this genocide. So some folks will boycott their graduation. it's a tough spot to be in. I'm ashamed of my alma mater. I, only wear my York sweater around the house. I don't envy you, but you did earn that diploma. And so one of the ways that some Palestinian solidarity groups have given suggestions on how to be a badass at grad. So it may seem small, but these acts of defiance will build you up. They'll build the people in the room up a little bit of build up the defiance within them, the courage that they have. Folks are often able to repurpose the images of people being a badass at graduation so that, it's just another example for folks on how you can resist within all of these institutions. So Joe's brought it up there. One of the most obvious is to wear a keffiyeh or some form of a keffiyeh, right? The pattern that it has is available on all sorts of things now. You can be creative or as big and bold as possible. Wear it right around your neck.
I got bandana. I got 2 styles for bandana alone. I should have worn it for today just to show, but.
And so like some universities are going to and have already created like explicit rules around what you can and cannot wear. But remember, the keffiyeh is still recognized as a cultural garment. And so it is sometimes not that we don't have many examples of people being removed from wearing their keffiyeh. It's just one of the examples. Another one is to bring a Palestinian flag, hold it up while you're on stage, or perhaps while you're in the crowd as well, waiting for your comrades to cross the stage. You could bring a sign. Some people hide it. You have a big black robe, right? So you're definitely not going to get it probably close to the stage with a sign if they can see it. You might have to be creative and hold it under your robe. We've seen people get to the front of the stage and unveil it, open it up, make sure somebody is filming. That's kind of secondary to all of this. They've specifically in this post here are talking about who they expect to see on stage. The president of the university, sometimes it's the dean of your department. Sometimes there's a whole lineup of people. Maybe know who's been complicit. Has there been an ally on stage? You could refuse to shake their hand as a moment of solidarity. If you have the chance, you can stop and say something to them. If you're a valedictorian or somebody handed the mic, you know what to do. I mean, that's kind of obvious. Take those moments. We're very rarely afforded platforms as human beings. I mean, content creators know we scramble for every bit of exposure we can kind of get so that the message gets out. So, you can't waste any opportunity. And I think this might seem small, right? Like insignificant, but it's just a reminder to always resist in every little bit you can. So how to be a badass at grad. Anybody else have any advice for graduates? I mean, I booed the person who gave the speech. It was the head of the Ontario Energy Board at the time when they were just like I was like, are you serious? And like my comrades had a Rogers show up, and it was just for political science grads. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. But yeah, so we'll start to see the footage come out of graduations. Some, maybe they'll be able to shut some down. That's a tough one, though. I mean, when the encampments were on, I remember asking folks at the People's Circle for Palestine at the University of Toronto, do you try to get them to cancel convocation? And that was a tight spot for them to be in because the administration was trying to sell the idea that they were dangerous and too disruptive to school life, like they were taking things away from other students by doing what they were doing. And that kind of move to, disrupt convocation seemed to play into that kind of narrative. So I think most folks chose to demonstrate outside to remind students, what was going on with their institution. And obviously encourage people on the inside to make any kind of gesture possible. So yeah, if you see any, share them with us and we will share them on our feed. Any acts of defiance are worth sharing. Back to the disruptive. Joe, you said you added a really good one.
I did.
A positive one. I can't believe I forgot that one, so I'm glad you did.
You didn't forget this one because this literally dropped an hour ago. It was
I'm not
posted
thinking of the same people. Share the news with us.
Yeah, so this dropped about an hour ago, and it is a massive victory in regards to Ottawa. And it has to do with, it has to do with 6 people who were arrested last November. So go through the. So the background of this was that back in November 2024, during one of the marches, there was a sudden increase in police aggression. They were being pushed, they were being shoved,
I
and
remember
6
this.
people were arrested. Not all on the same day. 5 were on the same day. Another one a day later, if I remember correctly, or a couple of days later. And they were charged with mischief, illegal assembly, and obstruction of a police officer. These were just egregious overreach. Because what occurred was, and the account and the video was that these, the individual members were shoved by police, and then after they were shoved by the police off the road, they were charged with these charges for having been at a protest and just attending. So it was a massive.
The footage showed, like, I don't know if folks remember it. We did share it when it happened. They were pushing people into a position to be arrested, and they were trying to get them all, like, they were pushing them onto the street, but then at one point they were pushing them onto a sidewalk where there was not enough room for them, which was starting the pushing and shoving between the two groups, like police. And then that's when they start to get folks for obstructing a police officer. Sometimes you even see assault of a police officer when they've initiated the violence and made it nearly impossible. Like, you're literally between a rock and a hard place. So I do remember this action. I'm so glad. Like, and the reason I thought that I had just forgotten this, because it was just last week that I think I left it off the agenda, where another whole slate of charges were dropped against Toronto area activists.
Yes.
Similar circumstances. Not the Indigo, kind of after Indigo, before this Ottawa.
Toronto, Toronto was last week. This one's this week. This is kind of a wonderful thing to see. As Ottawa, the message here, they're talking about, we've had heavy fines and speakers and megaphones. There's been randomly restriction to the movement to sidewalks. That's kind of been what they're doing. And this is obviously limited to Ottawa. Toronto has been seeing it as what the message from the Ottawa groups are saying. And as we were mentioning last week, or the week before, I can't remember when, there was a drop in regards to their cases. So this is just what they're doing. And I've been, sorry, not just me, but we've all been saying, they'll come in, they'll try to arrest, they'll try to intimidate with the system, because they'll arrest you, they'll put you conditions, including no protesting, which is the problem. Because that's what they want to do. They just want to silence you. And they'll just let the charges hang, because they know the charges aren't going to go anywhere. But it doesn't matter. If they can just get you to be silent for about a year, maybe they can make the whole thing go away. But they've realized it's been a year. Protests are still going on. Maybe there's something to us. Like maybe you should take a look as to what the message is, and maybe, stop funding Israel. Just to throw that out there.
Just an idea.
Just an idea, just a thought. Why not? Everything else you've tried so far hasn't worked. Maybe try that one. I know it's a little bit much, but it's just ask you to stop doing something. That's it.
Oh gosh. Speaking of stopping something, we're gonna have a few of those. So here we go. We talked about this about a month ago, but this is a large event for peace activists in the country. Folks will be coming in from all around to shut down CanSec. These acronyms fucking drive me crazy, but it's like the biggest arms fair, right? Think of, the bridal show for war.
Yeah.
All the vendors get to, do they display the goods? I don't fucking know how it works, but all, like, villains, a gathering of villains. And every year, I don't know the history, but years and years. I mean, I can find references back to the early, 2019, I see an article there where folks have been trying to shut this down to varying degrees of success. Last year, there was a really good turnout. I imagine, this obviously predates the genocide happening in Gaza, but it takes a whole different turn right now that an arms embargo was one of the main focuses. So to have these folks who are lobbying the government to keep the contracts with Israel, to continue sending weapons all over the world to aid imperialism, they're all going to be in one spot at the same time.
Yeah.
Hello. So on May 28th at 7 a.m., you get there early because these, it's a conference. They all get in there with their coffees bright and early. You're not going to shut it down if you show up at noon. So a lot of folks will be going into the Ottawa area even the day before, which is, why we've brought this forward so many times. It'll give you time to plan to go down to Ottawa. Joe, it's kind of a remote place in the city, so folks have to...
It is. Actually, let me take it over because I've got the
Thank you.
images here too I captured. So this is going to be at the EY Center. It's actually conveniently located next to the Ottawa Airport. It was cheap land, as well as it's just convenient for conferences coming in and out. The event was there last year. The most significant events that occurred there during the last year's CanSec was the infamous slap, where a protester was slapped by a Swedish foreign national, and then he was arrested and immediately released, so that he was given conditions, immediately released, and was able to grab a plane and go back home. So there was a lot of upset people in regards to this, particularly from the communities to who was assaulted. We're not even sure what's the status of the charges, but if I was to put money on it, I wouldn't be surprised if they're dropped, because he'll come out with like, oh, well, they were antagonizing him. The Crown here has been very, very difficult. So it's one of those really problematic situations. But so there is an interest in hoping that more people show up in this particular case. This one's not the Ottawa call out, by the way, that you sent me. This is the Toronto call out, which is fantastic, because again, the message is the same, everything else, but if I remember correctly, the yellow is not what the original, because when I'm looking through this, there's a call out for Toronto to carpool, which I think is great, which means more people are going to be coming out to this particular event. They're going to be leaving on the 27th, because the event is on the 28th. That's correct. It's on the 28th, so you guys will be here on the 27th just to be here in time to be there. And it's going to be starting at 7 a.m. And it's going to be a long day.
So we will obviously cover that again. We'll remind folks the Rabble Rants right before it, but we will definitely cover that on Blueprints of Disruption and try to get some of the activists in to talk about how it went and where that whole campaign is going in terms of the arms embargo as well. Another widespread action. This one folks can virtually take part in, and actually it is only virtually. There is on Wednesday, May 21st. Again, like I probably won't be here next week. I'm just telling Joe this now. But anyway, there is a national organizing call. So we've talked about Artists Against the War on Gaza, Writers Against the War on Gaza, No Arms in the Arts. There's quite a few campaigns that have explicitly targeted Scotiabank as being complicit in the genocide, as investing in all of the usual suspects that we are trying to divest from. And they've garnered some success. However, obviously not full success, and they keep going. They're inviting everybody to the call. I was supposed to share this link in the comments. Let's do that so I don't forget. This is how folks can sign up for the call and to join the nationwide campaign. So it's in the evening on Wednesday. This is World Beyond War that is behind this organizing. They're behind the arms embargo campaign in general. They have been so pivotal in organizing direct actions over the last 19 months. Really a lot of heavy lifting from a really small team. Rachel Smalls is I don't know what her title is. She is World Beyond War Canada, wears so many hats. If you folks can support their work in any way, please do. Like I said, a lot of heavy lifting being done by a really, really small team. So I invite folks to join the organizing call. Even if you don't think you can get involved, it's always nice to hear what other people are doing, the tactics that they're using, and how they organize people. Because these are folks that are really good at it. They've been doing it for a long time. You can help. I sometimes sit through these just to learn how to be a better facilitator. But they're going to share a lot of how-tos and check in with folks from right across Canada. So I thought that was pretty cool. And people are bussing in for another event this week. Let me get the date so I don't get it wrong. There's a regional March for Palestine in Toronto on May 17th. So that is next Friday? Saturday?
17th would be
That's
Saturday.
Yeah, so next Saturday, Yonge and Dundas Square is the location, but I was finding folks organizing buses in Barrie, in Kitchener, in Mississauga. So your local Palestinian Solidarity group is likely working on something to that effect if you are in the GTAA area. Again, it's a regional. I don't know how far the region stretches, but that's for folks who can get to Toronto for May 17th. It's, I believe that's Nakba Day. Just these anniversaries keep coming up, like we've just experienced them, but that's kind of, they take some of these dates and escalate a little bit. What else do we have? Oh yeah, just that's the bring
Nakba Day is
forward.
May 15th.
Nakba Day, yeah. So like this is to mark Nakba Day. I'm sure there'll be events actually on that Thursday as well, probably. But you're going to probably get in all of your regions a massive march on that Saturday. To try to just catch as many people as possible. And I just have one other action to share. It's something that we're actually co-hosting. It's not as exciting perhaps as shutting down CanSec, but it is a lunch and learn with folks from Revolution of the 21st Century, or Rev 21, as a lot of people refer to them. We're going to have one of the main, Robin Boardman, one of the main players from that organization. They have predominantly been operating in the UK, but are branching out to other places, including Canada. They're openly calling for revolution. I think the slogan that they have is, it's not just something that's needed, it's inevitable. We thought, you can come sit, literally eat your lunch while on a Zoom call, hear about what this organization is doing and how they are kind of recruiting folks into this mentality of stepping up, direct action, becoming more rebellious, and working towards revolution. So, definitely worth talking about. It's free. All of our events are free. You just have to register. I've put the link, the Zoom registration there. And yeah, I'll be a co-host. It runs for 2 hours. It's really chill. We open up to smaller discussion groups so you can meet folks, other activists, and just kind of check in with us as well. But that is all the disruptive updates. Am I missing anything, Joe? You're usually good at following behind me here. Regional March.
I think that's good. No, I was trying to see if there's for the 17th for Ottawa. I'm sure there is one right now, but I'm not finding the information just yet. Wait. Sorry, there is one for the for it. It's so much in the same vein as the regional march. The regional march in Ottawa for the 17th. In Toronto. We're also going to have the same one, obviously, in Ottawa, or similar, and that's going to be Saturday, March May 17th at 2 p.m. at the Human Rights Monument, our usual gathering place in Ottawa for when we're doing most Palestinian protests. We'll start there, march around the city, and then come back and finish there. And that's it.
Yeah, so I imagine that'll be repeated in most of your big urban centers. I forgot one update from campuses, a Canadian update. The U of T faculty voted for divestment. Again, we saw record-breaking turnout and record-breaking numbers of affirmative votes, like we've seen whenever students have been able to bring the issue to an assembly. It's been incredible turnout. So U of T just reported that yesterday, faculty voted in support of divestment from the manufacturers of weapons used to commit war crimes in occupied Palestine and Sudan. Although the Board of Governors does not really listen to the faculty or the student bodies, it is just showing that the momentum is there, and it's all a manufactured consent in terms of the administration, right? So they start to look like the holdouts that they are, right? When everybody that is meaningfully involved with the school wants the money divested, it's really just a couple of dragons, a couple gatekeepers at the top that will do anything to stop them. So that isn't daunting the students. They keep organizing. So shout out to the People's Circle of Palestine for that victory yesterday. Let them celebrate it. But that's it for this Friday. I hope you enjoyed the stream. I appreciate folks, especially when you share it, because, like you see, we have a small audience. No one wants to unpack the headlines, getting them from the CBC even, or heaven forbid, they're stuck watching CP24. Steer them our way on Friday afternoons. And yes, so we will drop an episode for Blueprints of Disruption on Tuesday, like we always do. And make sure to catch these folks, my partners in crime here, Queen of the Herd 613 on almost all the platforms. I find you everywhere, as well as Joe.
I've been happening quite a bit on Blue Sky and TikTok as of late, making a lot of content in regards to just what's focus a lot in regards to the politics, particularly in regards to states as well as Canada, and how we're trying to get our way out of it, as well as trying to engage with people on the left and on the right just to get a sense of what's going on. And it's always very, very interesting.
Sometimes I don't want your reports in, I was like, I've been ignoring the right, maybe to my detriment, but
there are some interesting clips if you go take a look at, in particular, my TikTok. If you see a sort of a red rounded rectangle, and the last two one was immigrant saunas and American or cooked goose. They're just very interesting, strange right-wing crash outs. And they're very entertaining. I'll leave it at that, and I'll let you guys enjoy them, because we'll see if you find them as entertaining as I did.
Entertaining maybe isn't the right word, but we get where you're going at.
Yeah, they were special, and they were very noteworthy, and it's. I get really concerned about our population when I see that.
Oh no. Say. Well, hopefully everyone can go touch a little bit grass at the long weekend coming up. Rabble Rants will be taking a short break for the long weekend, so we will meet you folks back here on the 23rd, which is actually closer to May 2 for the Queen's birthday. Anyway, you have fun. Don't be celebrating the monarchy. If I catch you out there celebrating the monarchy, you're not invited. But no, take care of one another out there. Check in on your comrades, please, and keep on disrupting. That's what we do. Take it easy, folks.